everywhere, even
Yeah.
in other cities.
It's
marble,
true, yeah. I feel like it's like a public building thing. It's like,
From
it
the
used to be like
30s or something.
yeah, like it's our government is strong and, built of solid materials, even in the bathrooms.
We had a remodeling job in City Hall and Municipal Building in Milwaukee, and we harvested so much marble.
Did we ever sit here?
Anyway,
Okay.
yeah.
I need to plug
Oh,
my phone in.
We just repurposed so much of it.
That'd be weird.
I bet. I know. I'm like, what are they going to do with this when they replace
So-
City Hall?
I think actually they all have plugs underneath.
Oh,
Just so
really?
you know, like it's just
It's a big file, so
in
it
case
might
this is
take a
even
while.
still too far.
Yeah, let me,
But
I don't know.
Like I said, another option is to just display.
Somewhere.
Maybe in the floor, but they can't.
It looks like
sharpen
there should be.
I think it'll,
Is it?
it's when I emailed it to
Underneath,
myself last night,
okay.
Yep.
it took a few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
yeah, I briefly, when I was in undergrad, worked at the Kansas City Hall, which is like a 30-story tall Art Deco skyscraper. That it's insane. Like absolutely every surface is like oak or marble. Like everything is and
And
brass.
it's like everything else is falling apart.
Yeah, but the City Hall is pristine because it's all the most high quality materials.
Yeah, that's if City Hall ever moves.
It's like banks, yeah.
It's worked the same way. I think
Yeah.
it's just a symbol, like
I know.
symbolic, like we're strong, we're of
Yeah,
stature.
even in, what's it called? On the corner of Oak and Carrollton, the coffee shop.
Of course, yeah,
Have you
same,
been in
yeah,
there?
yeah.
Yeah. There's a similar building in Milwaukee where the movie gangster movie.
There's a gangster.
Dillinger?
Engineer.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was
So yeah,
was
my
from the
pitch to
demo.
join this committee was I used to have y'all as a client and now I don't.
How are you?
So I know some of your
Good. How are you?
problems
Good.
and you're not
Hi.
paying me anymore, so I can tell you what they
tell
are.
you,
Yeah, before I had to be nice.
We gotta have this guy.
Well, I think I was the only guy in the West Bank to apply too, so
Anyone
I was
say
like,
you would
okay,
put nothing?
yeah, we definitely need this guy.
Jalen is not
I
able to
traveled
attend. Her
pretty
son
much
is
off
in the
Engineers
doctor's
Road
office or
this
something.
morning for a meeting. So Trico
Alicia is not able to
is
attend.
parts,
because she's
heavy
teaching a class
parts
now.
acquired.
I think at 4:30.
Machinery shop.
So,
And we actually sent
and
one
of
of
course
our
David.
trucks there for the engines to get rebuilt.
Okay.
And that's like, I got good news in there. Good news.
I
we
mean,
can do it.
she responded to
Bad
the doodle
news,
poll
50 grand.
and said she was available at this time. So,
I heard of 20, I heard of 15.
Right.
I think it's a 50.
What's up?
I
thought about you
almost
when
get a new truck.
Like,
Yeah.
have I talked to you since we evacuated for the
I
hurricane?
don't think so. But yeah, we were in St. Genevieve
Contract.
a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
We've actually been twice since Mardi Gras.
Dana says she's on her way.
Providing sand to people's
Okay.
My parents are here from there.
From
and
Beverly
that's
or
always-
Woods.
Yeah, Mike's parents are going to come down
People's out.
next weekend.
Do they get lost all the time?
Trucking, right? I think
Yeah.
I think when you joined, I
happens
found
to
you on
my
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they just really don't go anywhere.
I know. Yeah, that's confusing.
did I not do that?
We've lived here
Sometimes
for over
I feel
10
weird
years,
doing that if I
though.
haven't
I'm
met
like,
somebody in
oh.
person.
I just do it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to build my
Yeah.
network. I just
I
do
get
it.
so many.
But they don't
people I
care.
know
They just
from
want their
there.
grandkids to like
Is
sit on
it?
their
Okay.
lap. And
Yeah. How old are your kids?
7 and 3.
Oh,
Yeah.
So one of them is still maybe.
That's me with my
I mean, they're
my
both pretty settled
my
dudes,
headshot
but
at 27. That
we
I
were just
refuse
at
to
Fontainebleau
update.
State Park earlier today. Sean took Felix, the older one,
LSU?
camping.
Yeah.
So then we met him up there.
I just dropped my mom off
Thank you,
because
all those
Sid
things.
has off for
Oh, I
spring
went to
break.
high school in South Carolina.
Same.
Easter
My
Passover
folks are from
weekend.
here, but we
Connect.
moved
I
up
don't know
there.
why we're not
My
connected.
husband works at the port and he's like,
There we go.
drop them off at the Navy week and they can see the ships.
We're
and
going
Drop my
tomorrow.
mom right there.
Yeah.
And she just called me and she said they won't let strollers in, and she said they also won't let the guy in front of her in a wheelchair in. And I was like, what? I can see like not on the ship. And I called my husband too. I was like, is that right? He's like, no. I mean, like they shouldn't be allowed on the ship.
Yeah, but they could go see.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not even letting them in the park?
No,
I
they're
didn't
not
know
letting them
that.
through security.
Wow.
I'm like, Mike, you might need to tell somebody about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, the stroller is maybe okay, but the wheelchair is probably
that's
a
questionable.
situation.
Gotta find a way to
Figure that out.
examine it and
Kind of.
certify it as
I
safe.
think it's, I mean, probably just, you can't get on the ship, like with the wheels. like,
No,
these-
there's no ADA ramps on the ship, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I
I
guess
don't
the
think there
military
is a
isn't
bag
required
Right.
for ADA accessibility.
Yeah.
Still
Have you
doesn't.
guys had busy days today at Sewage and Water Board?
Yeah,
First meeting of the day.
No way.
yeah. He actually just woke
Okay.
up.
Good.
Yeah, I have one of those like Men in Black, and it just
Uh-huh.
erases everything they've done with the
Honestly,
day,
I wish
so I
had
can
one of those
survive.
every day.
I know. Might sleep better.
Actually, we had a board meeting this morning in person right here, but 2-hour meeting was very good meeting.
Our meeting. That's like a short
We had a
meeting.
lot to cover, and we had missed a committee meeting, so we had to make up for that, so that added some time. And we had discussions about ongoing legislation pertaining to the board, and I had about a half-hour presentation of, updates of things that are happening, and so on. And then we hosted a councilman at the plant earlier,
On Carrollton? Or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
The entire council?
we'll do it one at a time, just to avoid any quorum, and they each have their own issues they wanna talk about, and less,
I was gonna say, you had your board and the council on the same day?
And now you guys.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, we're easy.
they're friendly.
Lesser of the evils, huh?
Well, we're hoping we can start,
Yeah, I
and
might give it.
And Jen should
I
also.
haven't heard
be
from
here.
her, but maybe just 2 or 3 more minutes.
Are they letting you know when people check in downstairs?
No.
It was very
It's a-
official.
The security system is interesting here.
They tried to pass me to another security guard who wasn't there, and then somebody came out the door, so I just
Yeah,
said
they
myself.
should have had a name with or a list of y'all's names on it.
They
You
did.
did.
Okay, well
They
that's
did.
good.
They
So that
did.
should make it easier. And in that case, then they don't call me. If
Yeah.
you're not on the list, then they do
If
call
you're
me.
unexpected.
But then it is harder for you. So I figured it's easier, or it's better to make it easier for you
Mhm.
and not know when you're coming in then.
No one warned me about the switcheroo elevator though.
Oh
It was
yeah.
Like, ding. And
Yeah, it's not an intuitive building.
no, they were like, go to the back all the way.
It should be, I think, a bank or something, right?
Oh.
And the way it's designed, and there's an addition that was done, and I mean, it works for us, but it's not very
Yeah.
visitor friendly.
Yeah, it is strange that the one place that's like public facing for meetings is like the hardest to get to.
Yeah, I was
Other
walking
than,
around.
like a city
like-
council chambers that's just like open.
The best way to get in, really, if we can monitor the doors in St. Charles.
Right.
Easiest, more straight up.
Has anyone heard anything about the city? So in our neighborhood in Carrollton, they're obviously doing road work, and the city yesterday, they put up signs the same day that they started towing cars off the street, and so they towed like so many cars yesterday, and they towed, like, our housekeeper was there yesterday, and they towed her car, and then they damaged it. Like, they broke the windshield, and then and they like scratched the paint, and so it was like $191 to get your car out of the of under the
Tow truck. and
yeah, the tow
line.
truck, and then it's damaged. And I was like, what even do you do in that situation? Surely that's happened to other
Probably
people.
file a claim.
Yeah.
So then do they give you all your money back plus the damage for your car, or do you still have to pay for your car being
They will argue that the two are separate.
I'm not
Right.
sure. I'm just like bad form city. That's a contracted company though, right? The tow truck, I guess. I don't even know.
I know the city operates their own tow trucks.
Yeah,
so
they
I
do
don't.
have their own.
It depends though. If it's for a construction contract, it might have been a contractor.
Yeah, but then they
Might have been
tow
like-
them all to the same place, I guess.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, like that. I mean, who knows?
No idea.
Yeah,
That's a disaster.
I know it is it's a good word for it.
I'm just gonna go like peer over the railing and see if there's anybody waiting.
Yeah,
in
I
security.
mean,
and if
Dana
not,
said Texas
then
is on
we'll
the
get
way, so
started.
at least
and
we'll
we
start
can
for her and
yeah,
then
we can
we'll
put
go.
Jen at the end if she ends up
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, I'm gonna move
And
down
I can
there.
cover that too.
Nobody else comes, so we have better conversation.
What's that?
I told you Elaine was crazy. Haven't you seen her?
You did warn me. You did warn me.
Every time she
Not that I
emails
don't wanna
someone,
sit next to you, but
it might be
Make
better
that
if
meeting
we
easier if
circle.
I didn't get mad.
I may end up moving
like,
if
okay.
only Dana shows up with
That's
her
okay.
there,
My
this way I
husband,
can face
he
you
knows her
guys.
job, like,
Round up the
like
circle.
very disappointed. How's your baby?
Awesome. Both of them.
Oh. How's your wife?
Got Easter pictures.
Oh boy.
That's my boys.
Oh my god, he's chunky.
Yep.
Is he fatter than the other one?
He at this stage of life, yes.
Yeah, I was like that. The
He-
second ones are
The
always
first one was born bigger, but the second one at 6 months is bigger.
roly-poly. Love it. Love a chunky monkey.
They're your sons, man. They're twins.
They're so cute.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, dude, it's so weird. When I look at pictures of my 2-year-old when he was 6 months, it's like the same kid. It's the same kid. It's crazy. Like he's got, the second one has slightly darker eyes and hair. Other than that, they're like identical. It's crazy.
Is the second one just like roll with the punches?
Oh yeah, he's pretty chill. He won't let my wife sleep still, so
Rude.
that's too bad. She had a rough night last night, and I had to leave early, so they're all asleep when I left. And it's 7 in the morning.
I don't see anyone else, so. I
Really?
think we
No
can
Dana?
Just
Oh.
well, I think she said she was on her way, but she'd be late, so.
Okay.
I would not go back to
You
that.
don't look old enough for that, man.
Well, let's maybe then get going, respecting the fact that you were punctual and you're here and you have things to do, I'm sure. So, we'll do a quick round of introduction because this is the first time in person. So, welcome. This is our boardroom, so everybody knows who everybody is. So we'll start with you.
Leah O'Donnell.
Right.
I'm Kyle. I think Otis was the only person I had not met in person yet. So
Always Tucker. You want a little bit more to it?
I mean, that's
It's fine. I
It's
don't
up
want
to
to
you.
drag the meeting out.
I work for the board.
Haley Solster.
right. And everybody knows Tyler,
Hi.
and hopefully we'll be joined by a few more. So we have one main item today, customer service that was really requested by, ironically, somebody who's not here. Nonetheless, we'll spend some time on that. And then by request, we wanted to touch,
Oh yeah, I was
bit-
curious.
Yeah, I mean, and we appreciate your curiosity. We had asked Jen Avegno, who's the Commissioner of Health Department, to come and share what she knows and her involvement. We'll give her a chance, and if she doesn't show up, I can share what I know and our role as the utility in that.
Great.
I mean, it's a major effort, and
Yeah.
many states are doing it, and definitely an awesome tool to predict.
That's here.
So here's Dana and here's Jen.
Hi, Dr. Vega.
Hey.
tried to win.
Lost on the way down. Sorry about that.
Thanks for joining us.
So
Let's get started, so.
yeah, and we were gonna hold off till the end so you can share what you know about
Sure, whatever.
wastewater.
Yeah.
So, but before we start with that, though, I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that Dave Conrad, one of our members, is moving out of state to DC. So obviously he's resigning. Want to thank him. Unfortunately, he had a good reason not to be here today. So wanted to acknowledge him, obviously in person. But we'll send him a note. But so he's moving on. He represented District A, so we'll be looking for a replacement for him. So if any of you know of anybody who's interested and you think would be a good fit for this committee, would be awesome. So we're open. We'll just wait maybe
Can
a
you
few.
remind us what District A is again?
City Council District A, basic, for the most part, covers
Like Lake
Riverbend,
Lakeview.
Holly Grove,
Yep.
Leonidas, Lakeview, parts of Mid-City. We can send around a map. I think it does reach down into like the upper part of Mid-City.
I might
And to
now
City
be in
Park.
A.
Huh?
I said I might now be in A.
Oh, because you moved.
Oh.
That's
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Okay.
So we need to see what you were before, and maybe we need
It
to
may be
replace you.
replaced.
Yeah.
Elaine would be A as well, right?
What's
Isn't
that?
she Elaine? Isn't she
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Leonidas?
A as well, so
Yeah.
she could also fulfill the requirements since we
Right,
added her as a sort of an extra member.
right, that's right.
Okay,
That's
but
right.
still, I mean, anyone that you know of who may be
Sure.
interested, let us know, because there's just, I mean, there's no limit to the number of people we can have, so it's always good to have engaged folks
Absolutely.
that are interested in participating.
I mean, if people come to us and say we want to be on your committee, we're not gonna be that much of a stickler. We're gonna accept you and
Sure.
invite you and So.
I only
welcome
want
you.
to be on an exclusive.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's what we signed up for.
And like I said to a few people, we had a board meeting this morning. I updated the board, but all the progress that we're making. And I wanted to share two key projects with you that I think you will appreciate. As part of you visited the West Power Complex, if you recall, that large footprint that's going to house the substation, hopefully Entergy will build that, and then we have a new turbine that's designed to go there. We have 3 frequency changers that will take that power and then dumb it down to match the equipment on the other side. We have numerous amount of work that's going on, but today we got the approval to accept and award the contract for the turbine T7. It's a very exciting milestone, about almost $16 million worth. We have state and federal dollars for it, so that's moving forward. So very, very exciting.
It's fully funded. Is it fully funded?
Fully funded, yes.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, we were able to cobble together multiple sources of funding for that project. City, state, capital outlay, federal, some system funding just to leverage some of that investment. So it's, we don't have it 100% fully funded as a whole project, but key components have been identified and funding have been allocated. So we're moving forward. You're hearing probably a little noise about the substation, who builds it, who owns it, who pays for it. Nothing is final, but I'm very, very hopeful the mayor and the council will come to terms on how that would move forward. So it's delayed a little bit, but I'm not concerned. I'm not alarmed that the project is not gonna happen. But I guess it's very important to know that we're building a system of our own, and the substation will be another system. So there are 2 redundant systems. Once we're done with ours, which we can control and we're progressing, it can serve the purpose of providing power without the substation. It's not ideal because we want the substation to be the primary power because it's much more cost effective and much more reliable. But we'll have 2 modern systems standing by to kind of be redundant for each other. So we're doing well, we're progressing, there's some politics, but I wouldn't be alarmed if you're concerned about what you're hearing. So.
Is turbine D, is it the one that breaks all the time, or is it just not even?
So currently we have turbine 4 and turbine 5 that are the 2 largest ones, and we have turbine 1, it's a smaller one,
okay.
that's down.
Okay.
And as I explained to the board earlier, we may decommission it. I mean, we're looking at all the cost implications to bring it back to operations, and if it may not be worthy of that, so we may just call it and just say done.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very old machine, and with the new turbine coming in, it just makes it easier decision, just kind of decommission it. So
Is it down or is it operating at a lower capacity? And can it be
it's done.
redundancy?
It's not. We can't even start it without spending a lot of money on it.
Okay.
So we're kind of putting a paper together to just kind of make that decision straightforward. Yeah. But with the T4 and T5, we have a lot of power to drive the pumping needs that we may need during any peak event. So we have other pieces of equipment. So T1 typically is ideal for dry weather day because it's a smaller machine, and those turbines like to run at their capacity. So it's at like a 6 megawatt. So it's ideal for these day like today. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So we're running the T4, which runs at lower it's at 18 megawatts, but we're only using 6. Not ideal, but it works. So
Is the T5 is the one that's spewing the oil?
yes.
And
Yep.
that one would continue to be back up to the
To
7?
4. So we kind of changed the hierarchy. T5 was really my choice to be the primary source power, but because of the recent issue with, out of the blue, it started spewing some oil, but it's not consistent, which is odd. So we're going to spend some money investigating. So we kind of reverse the hierarchy, and now T4 runs as much as possible, but when we have to bring it down for just, maintenance or other reasons, then T5 will start. And we made a commitment to the neighborhood that we will notify them every time that happens.
And that's until T7 comes online? Okay, gotcha.
At one point, T4 and T5 will kind of basically, be decommissioned. If we can figure out T5 and what that issue is, I'd like to keep it as a backup to the backup, right? Because we've invested, about $3 to $4 million after the explosion, if you recall, in December of 2019. So I'd like to kind of use as much of that investment as possible, just have it as a backup. But only if we kind of figure what's going on with it, so. And then the other thing I wanted to share with you is the smart meter program. What you've been referring to it as the AMI for a while, so that is moving forward. Tyler is running that selection process, so we're down to 2 vendors. We've asked for additional information to kind of narrow down the competition and finally make a decision for next month board meeting. So again, very exciting. There'll be a process of negotiation and then start planning and what have you, but we're hoping to start some kind of implementation work, whether it's the soft side of, like the software, the interfacing, the actual infrastructure, we don't know yet, but in the beginning of the last quarter of this year, so.
And that's a short list of 2 installers, right? Y'all have already
Vendors, yeah.
selected the equipment.
No, so
No,
it's
these are the vendors.
All in one.
total solution.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Solution, software, installer, everything is under
Gotcha.
one umbrella.
How do those 2, how does the equipment compare to, I know there was a small pilot program, so there's a few hundred people, I guess.
1,800 of them,
18,
yeah.
okay. How does that, anecdotally, my theme for this meeting is anecdotally, and I'm asking y'all to provide me actual information, right? Yeah, anecdotally, I've heard a lot of problems with those pilot meters. They don't read out if you're parked on them. They don't read out if your meter box is full of mud, which obviously is like all of them. So I'm just curious to know how the ones y'all are looking to buy now compare to the pilot.
So the 2 vendors that we have shortlisted, we've actually had 2 pilots in the city, and
Okay.
they both are ones who have already done pilots in the city.
Okay.
So one of them is the one who's done the Algiers pilot. Another one did a much smaller pilot in New Orleans East about 5 years ago, I think, that was just testing remote disconnect technology. That said, we're definitely operating the absolute oldest pilot system in the world for AMI. So the technology is not the current technology. So we would be replacing all of the stuff that's in the ground there now, and feel confident that with a newer, more complete system that a lot of those issues would be remedied. That said, though, all the systems, no AMI system can transmit through a car parked over a meter pit, for instance, or a flooded meter pit, but they all store their information for a long period of time, and then once you can begin transmitting again, it will take that information back. So I think one of the vendors that we're looking at, it stores, I think, 450 days of hourly reads from that meter. So even if you go over a year without being able to read it, you can go out and retrieve that data from the meter.
And we'll be able to flag that and then do
Yeah.
something
Right.
about it.
We would
why
get
it's
like an
not-
immediate alarm when something is not reading or something's been tampered with or something, whereas now we just kind of have to wait and see
Right.
when something happens.
Is
I'm-
that
I'm
all-
all-
oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm mildly curious. I don't want to go into the deep depth of why did you determine best value versus hard bid process of selecting a vendor?
So we narrowed down the short list from the 7 vendors to the 2 simply based on technical scores. So that was based on capability, qualifications, the solution, technology, software, all of that stuff. And then we evaluate them on price through a value for money calculation, which takes the cost divided by the technical score so that you can actually determine over time which one is the best value in terms of, what we're getting for the amount that they're charging.
Just fully subjective to the process.
Yeah, so the technical score is subjective in terms of, you know, which solution do we think works best for us and who do we think is most qualified?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the cost is objective in terms of whichever's cheapest. But then you combine the two so that you can figure out which is actually the best value for the amount of money. So you're not just taking the cheapest, because that's not necessarily going to be the best solution. But we're also, you know, unlikely to pick the most expensive because, you know, we're going to know, even if it's the best one, if it's the most expensive, there may be one that's like maybe second place that ends up slotting into that first place because of the cost.
Fair enough.
Is all of the road construction underway going to interfere with the implementation?
No, I mean, it's all going to have to be phased over a couple of years anyways, so we can coordinate and sort of go in and out where we need to based on the work that's happening in the field.
It's a good question. Though.
Yeah, it is a good
What if
kind
the
of
city decides to do something else? I mean,
with
I don't know. I feel like things are still not like between what you guys are doing and what the city is doing. I guess I'm sure you coordinate with them.
well, we had the list of projects, current and future, is defined, and we'll just have to overlap it with how we're phasing our project and make sure to minimize any conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, the way we're situated, we're kind of like within their footprint. Hopefully they're done and moved on so we can come in and do our thing. If not, it's just a matter of being there for, you know, a time where they're not, or we can coexist. I mean, that I don't see it as a major issue, but it's something to be considered. So
Yeah. I mean, luckily for the most part, it's just there's no real excavation that typically has to happen. You're just getting inside of that cast iron pit, pulling out the old meter, putting in a new one, activating the antenna, and it takes about an hour tops per meter. So it's, you know, it's not like a lot of, you know, stuff going on. Luckily, most of the meters are, you know, in the sidewalk or behind the sidewalk or somewhere in that area. So the road work obviously can be a challenge, but I don't think it's going to be a major issue in terms of speed and getting things rolled out.
You have to replace all the cast iron, or just
No,
the top?
both the options that we've selected so far have remote antenna options, so we can either drill through the existing holes and put a small antenna that pops up out of the top, or they'll get replaced with a cast iron lid that has a recessed.
but only the lead,
antenna
not
piece.
The whole
the
thing
meter
just
itself
goes.
stays in, unless there's something wrong with it that then so it's just
And and the antenna, it's not like a vertical
Yeah.
antenna, right?
It's
It's
fairly flat.
flat.
It's
It
considered
sits on
ADA
the
in terms of
pole.
its flatness,
Yeah.
and is traffic rated. So, you know, it's not like a sticking up. You know, it's like a pretty. It only sticks up at like a half inch out of the top, but it's like a disc that sort of sits on top of the lid.
That's awesome. How many meters about are there?
About 140,000.
Okay, 140,000 hours of installation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, some of the commercial ones will take way longer than an hour, but yeah, there's maybe 12,000 of those.
And there's a significant amount of meters that are in the ground that are adaptable. They're ready to be retrofitted without being replaced.
Yeah.
So it might expedite the project and cut costs. So it's all in the works.
Yes, probably half of our residential meters are fairly new and they're AMI ready.
Yeah,
And
cool.
so we wouldn't necessarily have to replace those. The physical meter, you just have to replace the register and connect them to an antenna.
So very exciting. Just wanted to share that with you. Thanks for all the good questions. And now we can move on to the wastewater surveillance. We're very gracious and thank you so much for being here. Jenna Vegno, who heads the Department of Health or the city, is here to share what she knows about the topic. So go ahead.
Thanks for having me. You guys have a nicer conference room than we do at the health department, so I might have to start having meetings here.
Anytime.
No, thanks for having me. In the public health world, we've been talking about wastewater surveillance forever, but I think I'm realizing that's not really translating to the public. The public, and if I were a member of the general public, I would have no idea what wastewater is. It's exciting because wastewater surveillance is not anything new. It is really responsible for the birth of public health as we know it. The first disease that we were really able to diagnose, track, and trace using the public health methods that everyone has employed since then was cholera in the mid-1800s in London. And the gentleman who did it was sort of the father of epidemiology, and he did it through wastewater. There was, at that time, just like in New Orleans for yellow fever, there were lots of outbreaks, and no one knew how they happened, right? It was blamed on a whole variety of things and a whole variety of people. And what this gentleman did was very systematically trace an outbreak of cholera to a water pump. And sort of the rest is history. It's been used to understand and to detect and to combat all kinds of other infectious disease epidemics, polio being one of the bigger ones in the 50s. I think what throws people off is that we often refer to wastewater surveillance, and so it sounds very nefarious, right? It sounds like somebody is listening in on your wastewater. What it really is sampling and testing. So in any wastewater system, right, what is being collected before it comes to the treatment plant is all of the stuff that comes out of us. There are many infectious diseases and other conditions that the virus will be in your body and excreted in your body before you ever start to show symptoms. SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that causes COVID, is a really great example of this. You can be infected up to 7 days before you feel any symptoms and decide, well, maybe I'll go get that test, right? But very early on in your infection, you are going to be excreting levels of the virus through your stool. So what has evolved over the past 2 years of the pandemic is that wastewater testing has been a really great way for municipalities and also smaller entities that I'll talk about in a second to follow trends before it shows up in our formal testing, right? You know how it goes, right? You go to a party, you're feeling fine. 3 or 4 days later, you think, oh, I have that scratchy throat. Maybe it's nothing. And then maybe the next day you go and get a PCR test. And then at some point it shows up in our testing system. At that point, it's pretty late, right? You've already gone to see grandma or gotten on the plane or done whatever. And so the virus has spread. Several universities, locally and nationally, have actually been employing wastewater testing for the last year and a half or so. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? If I'm a university and I've got all these dorms, I can take a sample of the water as it's coming out of that dorm, because everybody who uses the bathroom in that dorm is going to come out that way, and I can watch it. And so if I see a dorm start to have COVID in the wastewater, I can then go to that dorm and say, okay, you know what? Everybody's getting a nasal test. We're going to put masks back on in the dorm. We're going to do these things so that that dorm doesn't spread it to the wider campus. It's been super effective in places like that. Also, congregate settings have used it. We haven't, until very recently, been able to do it in larger scale in the city, or most other cities really haven't had the infrastructure to do it. But for the last 2 months or so, we, thanks to some additional support from the HHS, from the CDC, New Orleans was selected as a site that the Louisiana Department of Health and us are working on. So we've been taking samples from the East Bank plant and the West Bank plant, very, very broad. It's not so much about what the number is, it's about watching the trend. So for me, this was critically important after Carnival, because I had some data before Carnival, and I was looking to see, are our numbers starting to go up, right? If our numbers would have gone up in the wastewater after Carnival, then that would have been a really strong indication that, you know, maybe we need to keep masks on a little bit longer because this is coming. What we were able to see is that, fortunately, the trends went way down after Carnival. So that made me realize that the other data we were getting, the testing, our regular testing that was showing that we weren't having a lot of positive tests, was real. Wastewater testing is never something that's the only thing you use to make decisions, but it helps to validate it. So what we've been doing with the general East Bank and West Bank sites is just looking for trends. And as our cases have ticked up a little bit, the wastewater numbers have sort of evened out. They still aren't at levels as high as they were during Omicron. So that makes me confident that, yep, we're having a little uptick in cases like pretty much everywhere else in the country, but there's nothing showing me that, oh no, a big surge is coming. We're fortunate that the Louisiana Department of Health, number one, is a great partner. They've gotten additional funding to do a pilot in New Orleans to include 8 to 10 additional sites. So not just that general, like, well, what's the East Bank doing? What's the West Bank doing? Because you can't really target anything there. So we've worked with them very closely. And what's always been important to us with COVID is how do we make sure that areas that have the most difficulty accessing the treatment and the resources they need are the ones who get those resources first. So I've got some pretty detailed maps that I get every week of our vaccination rates, and also some that tell me where cases are going up. So what we did in working with the State Department is looking at, and these are broad areas. This is not your house or your block. This is a big neighborhood, right? So you can't say, well, it's my house or your house. It's just this big area. But looking at the areas that have some of our lower vaccination rates that we're still working on, that's where we will be sampling additional samples so that if that area goes up, we know we've got more work to do with our outreach. We've got to bring resources there rather than just saying, well, I guess those people can go, they can go get tests if they need it. We're also going to be sampling the French Quarter because New Orleans is, it's always a question of, is there something going on locally, or are many visitors bringing things in from other places? And so it's going to be really important for us to say, locally we're doing okay and the numbers are staying flat, but we're starting to see a lot of visitors coming in. Then we can work with our hospitality folks and, figure out what mitigation measures we need to do there. And we're also going to be doing 2 school wastewater sites too. Because again, it's really important for us to understand kind of what's going on more broadly in schools. The great thing about this is, again, it's anonymous, completely anonymous. No one can identify anybody because it's all of the wastewater. It's early, it lets us see trends, and it's pretty simple to do, and we've got funding to do it. So it's going to be just another useful tool as we move into this new phase of the pandemic, where we know that outbreaks are going to happen, but they're probably going to be more targeted. And so we need to be smarter about where we bring our resources. I know that was kind of a history lesson, and I apologize. But any questions that folks have about it?
I'm curious where they do the testing, what lab?
So it's CDM, right? CDM Smith has the lab. So there's some wastewater, there's some contractors that do this kind of stuff, and they test water for all kinds of other things. The state lab also runs, I think the original one, the state lab is running the samples as well. So it's a partnership between the state lab and a contractor.
How do they collect? I'm just so curious, like how they collect it and where they collect it.
It could be anywhere, but it's sometimes they open up the manhole covers and take some water, and sometimes it's the
You look at
sticks that have like a cup on the end.
and
and
it out.
Yeah, and we test canals,
Yeah.
water. I mean,
Yeah.
so it's nothing unique, and it's very safe, and obviously
Yeah.
people are trained to handle that. But the beauty is that we provide not only the wastewater treatment plant, but also the conveyance, not the network system, showing where things are flowing and where would be a good hub to take a sample from, like the French Quarter, for example. Where is everything flowing?
Yeah, that's what I like.
Right.
How would you even, whenever you're doing these
So
localized
it's
areas?
it's the system. We know where everything flows to, and we have 84 pumping stations. So we have these points where everything drains to.
Gonna say
and-
it'd have to be at lift stations, right?
yeah.
You have a year and a half of precedence among universities, right, dorms. Is there data among municipalities?
Oh yeah, there's several municipalities who are sort of bigger than we are and have their own resources, have been doing it. New York, Boston, Houston's been doing it. Houston's actually been doing it in their public schools for some period of time. There is evidence that it really helps, right? Because it just gives you that extra week to say, hey guys, we need to put on masks, right? And if we can do the mitigation measures earlier, then that cuts the spread before you even know that it's out there. I can pull some, evidence here, more, see what other cities have found specifically if you want some specifics. And the other thinking is too, there's other diseases that potentially can be tracked like this. When everybody's got the stomach bug going around, there have been other places where they've been able to say, oh no, we're having a rise in, the virus that causes the stomach bug. Let's get some messaging out about hygiene and washing your hands before the rest of the community gets it.
And not that I need to know exactly which schools, but are the schools primary, high school? How are they selected?
We're still finalizing locations. One thing we really wanted to do is make sure we had a good geographic representation so that as many corners of the city we could get samples from, so that we could tell kind of the overall program. And, we want to make sure that the schools represent a good, diverse subset of folks in the city, that it wasn't just, well, this is the school that only has, this kind of kids in it. So we're still finalizing and working with NOLA PS on those, but they've been pretty excited about it. I mean, they've got probably the model COVID testing program. If you have a kid in public schools, they've done a phenomenal job, and they've really helped us keep cases lower than they could have been because their data has been so great. So this is just another way to do that.
Cool.
Any other questions?
When it's already started, or it's starting?
East Bank, West Bank started in mid-February, and actually, if you're interested, that data gets reported to the CDC. If you Google CDC COVID wastewater, it will show you all of the sites all over the country. You can actually look at New Orleans's 2 sites and the trends. It'll show you going up, going down. So it's all there publicly available, and you can compare it to what's happening. If you look at the Northeast right now, they've all seen a big rise because they're bearing the brunt of this new sort of mini surge, the new BA2. And so you can see the little dots turning red because they're having a much steeper rise in cases.
I think I have a question.
Sure.
So this is public. You can go
This is the East Bank, West Bank.
When we
yes.
get more specific with 10 sites, right? Will that information be public? And I'm thinking about the demographics of regions. If there's a notice that New Orleans East, Little Woods is experiencing a spike, and how does that affect other economic sectors?
Right. So that level of granularity is my understanding, and this is through the state, so I would make 100% sure by checking with them, is not going to be published.
Gotcha.
That's not going to be public, so we can say, oh, it's, those people are having an outbreak. Don't go there, right? No, it will be used sort of as we plan to flood with resources.
Yep.
Oh, look, let's stand up a testing site over there. Let's stand up a vaccine site over there because it looks like they're kind of trending up. So.
Thank you.
What is the funding mechanism? Is it like implementation funding or for 3 years, and does it cover other
It's
surveillance as well, or just COVID?
Good question. It is I believe it is 2 years just COVID, but the folks at the state are confident that they'll be able to then leverage that to expand it and do more things post-COVID.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of public health questions, which I'm not that's not
You
for
can
this.
email me. We can chat about it.
Okay. But thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
Doctor?
I talk about poop more than, I don't have small children anymore. I thought I wouldn't have to talk about poop. So.
We're used to talking about poop.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Sort of.
And if anyone that you all represent has concerns, I know it's something new and it does sound weird.
No,
Please.
I'm thinking about the messaging because it's so interesting and
Right.
it makes a lot of sense, but it does sound like
Surveillance. We're watching your poop.
but
Right. That's.
we're watching your poop.
So we're happy to, either us or the state, both of us, we're happy to talk through that with any groups that might be concerned about it.
As you build data, will you meet back with our group later
Yeah,
on?
I mean, I think Surgeon Water Board will have access to the data as well. Yeah. So I'll be happy to update and tell you how it's going for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Run out unless
Yeah.
you
No,
need
I
me.
know, I'm good.
Good to see
So
you.
much.
I appreciate it so much.
All right. So with that, we're gonna move to the next item, which is the customer service update.
But Elaine
Renee.
is not here, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna defer, and I'm happy to do it.
I don't know, I feel like she was the only one who.
I'm happy to share quick.
I feel like you should just do it, you prepared it, and
Yeah.
Maybe,
we're interested in
maybe
it.
Yeah,
kind
just
of
like
abbreviate, yeah.
So like summary.
Yeah.
I don't think I've met all of you. So I'm Rene Gonzalez. I'm the Chief Customer Service Officer for the Water Board. Been here now around 14, 15 months. And last time I met with all you guys, I did a quick introduction of what my strategy would be to enhance customer service, in the utility. So just wanted to give you an update of where we are, right, since then. So back then I shared that the approach that we were going to be taking really was based on three things: people, process, and tools. It's a comprehensive overarching strategy, not necessarily just in customer service, but across divisions, with the primary goals to enhance customer confidence and trust, improve utility performance, and organizational culture. Also showed this slide, and this slide describes, I'm gonna say, like the phases of this strategy. So it goes from left to right, and this is some of these things we already completed. So on the left side, you have leadership, trust, and confidence. Then, so that's to determine to diagnose workforce confidence in customer service leadership, okay? Then to the right, you have a SWOT analysis. You have root cause analysis tools. So that's to diagnose process and tools. Then you have change management, which is a constant, that's gonna occur, that's a permanent. And then we tie it to the strategic plan and our strategic priorities, and then we just have continuous improvement as a permanent endeavor throughout the utility. So on leadership, trust, and confidence, the first probably couple of months since I joined the utility, I spent my time having one-on-one interviews with both internal and external stakeholders. Had like an open door policy. We also designed some surveys that we had our staff respond. We sent, I think it was around 400 surveys, and we got back like 350, so it was like a 90% answer rate, so that was pretty good, and it was really indicative of how much they had to say, right? So that was about leadership, trust, and confidence. Then we conducted some SWOT analysis exercise, sort of like workshops, and what we got was that within customer service, and I'll be clear here, this is just for customer service, okay? The strengths were that we had some people that were very committed and very passionate, and some people were very knowledgeable of the processes, the products, and the services that we as a utility offer. Weaknesses, that was a long list, okay? As you can imagine. There were too many errors in billing. We were slow to respond to customer requests and inquiries. The accuracy of meter reading was poor. Escalation process was not good. Staff morale and engagement also wasn't where it needed to be. Staff requested support and additional training in regards to both written and verbal communication skills. This is customer-facing staff. Communication across divisions could also use improvement. We also heard that practices within customer service, but across departments, were not consistent, and there were a lot of processes that didn't have any standard operating procedures. And then again, low to moderate confidence in customer service leadership, and there was a lot of staff saying that there was a lack of accountability in a way that they didn't really understand why, and this is like high performers, right? Saying there's no incentive for me to continue going above and beyond if others are not held accountable when they do not, right? So out of those, out of the strengths and weaknesses, we identified some opportunities. First, to improve organizational performance by developing effective and well-balanced leaders, create more meaningful engagement with our staff, a culture of accountability, work on developing a overarching communication strategy. This is across divisions. And then to simplify the way we conduct business, both internally and externally with customers. And the second was to increase customer trust and confidence, and we would do so by developing more consistent training, both for initial training for customer service staff and ongoing training or refresher training, developing consistent business practices or SOPs, and enhancing customer experience in regards to billing, improving the escalation process and doing what we can to reduce the number of escalations received.
Could
So
you
that was,
explain
yeah.
escalations, just what that means in this context?
So when a customer has attempted to resolve a problem through the regular channels and has been unable to do so,
Gotcha.
and he escalates, or he or she escalates his issues.
Let me talk to the manager
Yeah,
situation?
sort
Okay.
of, yeah.
Okay.
Or call you so you can call Renee.
Yeah, exactly. Or call Gasan.
Council member or, yeah.
Is there an escalation process right now to be improved?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I'll share some of that in the following slides.
Do you want us to hold our questions or we can jump in?
Rather to
Yeah,
the
I'd
end.
like to ask
Okay,
that.
yeah.
That-
So, and this is just a screen that I wanted to share. This is staff working together. This is staff from all departments of customer service. We have different representatives, you know, from billing, from meter reading, from lobby, from contact center, and so on and so forth, working on root cause analysis, right? So in the previous slides, we talked about which are strengths, which were our weaknesses and opportunities. And then if we had weaknesses, what was the root cause of those weaknesses, right? And then, so we have those three to the left that are complete. Now, these are things that are going to be ongoing, right? But it's important for me that you all know that, I'm going to say, probably 99% of staff have never heard of like what a SWOT analysis is, what a 5 whys, what root cause analysis was like. They had like no idea, had no idea. So it was sort of like a slow learning process, but very beneficial to everyone involved. So once we cover all that, we start putting it all together, and then we have strategic priorities, strategic planning. And did they receive copies of the strategic plan?
In
Yeah.
fact, it looks like Dana got hers maybe today.
Okay.
If you haven't gotten yours yet, you should be today, tomorrow, sometime this week. They went out on Monday.
Yeah, so in the strategic plan, it identifies strategies to advance the vision in each of 6 focus areas: financial, technology, workforce, customer service, infrastructure, and organizational and operational improvement. So I'm going to be talking about number 4, which is under my purview, customer service excellence and stakeholder engagement. And our primary goal, as stated in the strategic plan, is to continuously meet and exceed the service needs of our customers and proactively communicate and engage stakeholders. This is just a screenshot of some of the tactics that you will see in the strategic plan, because there are many more. I think there's, I don't know, like 25 or 30. And those tactics were developed to support our strategic priorities, and also were developed based on the results of the SWOT analysis and the root cause analysis and the feedback that we got from staff. So what we're doing is that we're assigning an owner to each of those tactics, and you can sort of like visualize each tactic as a sort of like a mini project, right? Most of these have a start date and an end date, right? So they have a completion date and a very specific period in which they occur. This also wasn't really done, I guess, like years ago, okay? And to track the progress of those tactics and those projects, we're using KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. Why? Because they're measurable. We all know that what doesn't get measured rarely can it be improved. KPIs, and if we monitor KPIs adequately and appropriately, they enable us to re-strategize or pivot in a timely manner. They provide valuable information, and they foster accountability and personal growth. The framework that we're using to build our KPIs and our goals is this SMART framework. Maybe, or probably some of you have already heard about this. So goals are supposed to be, this is an acronym, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, right? And I included and as we develop our SMART goals, or developed our goals, we made sure that we conducted a PESTEL analysis to make sure that we included and we're mindful of any sort of like environmental factors that will impact our goals before setting our goals, to make sure that they were achievable and relevant. This is just a really simple SMART sheet that I included here. So like the initial goal, for example, would be contribute to the strategic plan by answering customer calls in the contact center. That's the initial goal, right? But after you go through the sort of like the criteria of what a SMART goal would be, the end goal would be, which is the last box, to contribute to the strategic plan by reducing abandoned call rate by 10% before end of year, with progress of 2.5% quarter over quarter, right? So now it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And it's just not a broad goal. Then what we did is that we assigned owners. So what you see in this screen is the departments that are under customer service. So we have contact center, the supervisor is Walding Mitchell, meter reading, Monique Chatters, escalations, Jackie Shine. We have billing, Tiffany Julian, plumbing department, Mike Evans, and then continuous improvement, Dave Bordenay. So they own most of the goals that we just showed in the previous slides. This is a screenshot of the Excel spreadsheet that we're currently using, and we're working with to track our goals and our KPIs. So if you notice, you have the second column is sort of like the starting period point. That's where we ended 2021. Some of these have benchmarks and some do not, because some things haven't been measured in the past, and we're barely going to start measuring those. We have our goal on the third column, and then we have our monthly, and then our quarterly, and then it goes on and so forth till end of the year. And this spreadsheet is just for internal purposes. We're working with IS to develop a customer-facing dashboard, and this is going to be on swvno.org. So something that is more appealing to the eye, and something that is, we're going to select metrics that are of interest to our community. And then we determined that the minimum skills required for customer service managers and supervisors were to have departmental function expertise. So if you are over the contact center, it is expected that you have expertise in contact centers, specifically yours. And then in regards to leadership, we found that we need to polish skills internally on communication, both verbal and written. This is at a manager and supervisor level. Coaching skills, feedback skills, performance management, and then attendance management. And for some of these, we rely on support services internally, like HR, like IS, that sort of thing. So it's a sort of like takes a village sort of approach. Then quickly, some of the works in progress that we have, or basically the tools, because we already talked about people and process. This is tools. We have Parent implementation that is to be rolled out by the end of second quarter 2022. And Verint is a customer relationship management system. And I don't know if you've heard about it. I was looking at Grace actually sent me an old presentation that she found from 2018, and it said that Verint was going to be implemented in June 2018. But it's going to be implemented in Q2 2022. So that's customer relationship management. It'll enable us to better track. A simple example is to track customer inquiries for like repairs, like for your sidewalk, for a billing dispute, that sort of thing. So you get a number, and then you can go online or you can call us and just say, this is my number. The rep will input the number, and then you get a quick update. We've started working closely with Cogsdale, and if you don't know, Cogsdale is our CSM provider or vendor. That's our customer service management tool, our system that we use to review bills and that sort of thing. And Cogsdale recently created a new position. They have a vice president of customer experience, which they did not have. And we're going to have Cogsdale of staff members. They're going to fly them in from Canada. I think they're in Canada. They're going to fly them in. They're going to do a system audit, and they're going to be shadowing our staff and observing how they use the system on a daily basis in different capacities, and then they're going to go back and say, well, this is how you're using it well, and this is how you're not using it well, and this is what you should do, which is something that we really need. Then we already talked about AMI. We're working on replacing or outsourcing some of our internal billing functions, like mail and sorting and printing equipment. The equipment that we have is really old. So that's in the works also for 2022, replacing or upgrading the handhelds for the meter readers, and developing some customer service workforce skill development workshops. I think that's it. Yes, that is it. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I'm super impressed by this information.
Thank you.
I do have a concern with slide 5 and 6. I think it's there's a slight bit of contradictory in terms of this.
Tell me where to stop.
I'm sorry.
It's a diagnostic SWAT strengths and
Right.
weaknesses.
Okay. Strengths?
Yeah. So here you have, well, the data reads there's passionate people, they're committed. Also, there's knowledge of the processes and products. And then we go to the weaknesses. They don't know how to bill. There's errors, reading meters, employee engagements. I just don't.
So this, maybe I should have included. Some people are committed and passionate, and some people have knowledge of processes, products, and services. Not all.
Okay.
So that's maybe something I can
This is
change.
a collection of qualitative data, right? Not like an assessment.
This is qualitative and quantitative data. Yeah.
Where's accountability at lower levels, right? So this is the executive team. This is your action plan. This is how you execute. This is how you track, and this is the results. What about accountability at lower levels? How to enforce? Are these civil service employees that work for you?
Yes.
So there's tenure. There's all kind of stuff with that, right?
Yeah.
That's
a really good question, and that's one of the things I feel really passionate about. So I'm glad that you asked. So typically, what we've done, which isn't unique, some of you will probably be able to relate. But what's happened throughout the years is that we have an employee. The employee is a regular staff member. Then suddenly they become a lead or a supervisor, and then we say, okay, here's your office, good luck, right? And there's really not a whole lot of support or training in regards to performance management, documentation, providing feedback, that sort of stuff, right? So in my opinion, there's a lack of accountability, I think at every level in this utility, because we haven't shown people how to performance manage. And I used to work at AT&T, and I used to be responsible for performance management exclusively for like a year of an office of around 900 employees. So I was like, you'd be sent over like to my office. It was like the principal's office, right? You sort of like knew something was wrong. And it was a union-based environment, so I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of experience dealing with the union and performing people at the same time. And it is a lot of work. It is very exhausting, time-consuming, energy-consuming to try to make people do something that sometimes they don't want to do, right? Now, our responsibility is to help everyone be successful, right? But at some point, it's important that staff understand that their job cannot be more important to me than it is to them, right? And when it gets to the point, then we also have a responsibility as public servants to make sure that our community resources are used in the best way possible, and paying someone to be paperweight is not the best use of resources, right? So we have an obligation to do something about it.
You have the ability?
We have the obligation, and we need to have the ability to do it effectively.
Well, and that's what I'm asking. Do you?
I do, and that's something that
I mean,
working with
not
the staff.
look, not. I mean, can you fire somebody? I don't think you can.
Good question.
Not to say I'm not. That wasn't a question about your leadership skills. That was a question about civil service
As an
rules.
organization.
Okay.
My understanding is that, look, and I mean, I'm still early enough in my career that I've only hired 2 people and I had to fire one of them. So I'm not very proud of that. That's not a great record so far. But I tried the guy for 9 months and I had a very similar attitude about it that you have. Is like, I want to help the guy. I want him to be successful. But eventually he's hurting my clients. He's hurting the team because the money I'm paying him for no product is coming out of our profit margins, which means it's coming out of our bonuses. So eventually I had to fire the dude. Like, and it didn't matter, I've been a pretty successful leader with the rest of my staff, so I don't think it was me. So like, it didn't matter that I'm an effective leader. I had to fire the guy. So, but you don't have that option, right?
If they document, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
I
the
mean,
whole.
there's a performance management process that you have to adhere to and follow, right? There's policies in place. We have our own policies. Civil service has their process and policies. And there are certainly ways to manage someone out of the business. Now, is it our goal? Absolutely not. I mean, that's not
Right, of course not. Yeah, and that's never a leader's goal, but there comes a point, right?
Yeah.
And look, I was in the Army too, so I was also in that situation where I couldn't fire people that I didn't
let me
want,
say this. You guys are asking the question because you know the answer.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So Renee doesn't have the luxury that you have,
Sure.
right? And despite that, we work very hard to work around that for the time being, because we have no other choice.
Sure.
I mean, training,
Right,
moving people around, putting them in better positions that they can do better. But they can only do so much, because some people just either have the ineptitude, the bad attitude, they just don't want to do whatever. And it's an effort. So we're not just letting people be what they want to be. We're working very hard on it, and it takes so much away from doing the work and trying to improve them. So in the meantime, I just want to. This is a team that we gotta trust. Telling the story as it is a little bit. We're working very hard on changing that culture, not trusting that people are gonna just follow. We're gonna try to change the environment by which we govern our employees. 1,300 folks. We just cannot sustain and improve with the current system, being under civil service. So we're working very hard on collectively changing that. It's gonna be a while. It's been tried before, unsuccessfully, but we think we have a way to do it by having our own employees, the good ones, who wanna be better, wanna do better, help us get there.
What kind of endeavor is that? Is that like a next year endeavor, a 5-year endeavor?
We're hoping that it's less than 2 years.
Okay. Is there anything you guys are looking at doing in the meantime that can kind of take some of the handcuffs off, like probationary period extension or
I think,
something
well,
like
and
that?
that's where, in my opinion, making sure that managers and supervisors have the adequate skills or the required skills to, because there are tracks like to performance manage someone, right? You have the performance track and then you have the attendance one. So two separate components, and they're not the same, not in this organization,
Yeah.
right? At other companies, you get performance and attendance and you can combine them to do like strike 1, 2, and 3 quicker,
Yeah.
but we cannot here. But there are certainly ways of using civil service rules in our benefit. There certainly are ways. And the first is, I think, and this is something that's not included here, but it is something in our plans. I've shared with the executive team recently that we're gonna have quarterly assessments for our staff, for example. If we know that there's billing errors left and right, that you come in and call customer service and one rep tells you one thing, another rep tells you another thing, then we need to do a better job training our reps and then making sure that the skill sticks, right? So quarterly assessment, and this is not to get people in trouble, but to be able to document that we trained you so you have the skill and that you were able to demonstrate that you have the skill to perform specific tasks, right? So once we're able to observe you to complete a task continuously for two, three times, then we can document that you have the skill. If it continues happening, then it's a matter of will, right? So we have skill on one side and will on the other side. And will is very easy to manage, to perform, manage out, right? Because now you're able to demonstrate to civil service or whoever that you did your part as an employer to provide the tools, the resources, the training, the support, all these things for someone to do their job, but now they are just unwilling to do so. Right, so there are ways. Are they simple and practical? No. Is it a lot of work? I mean, my expectation would be that like the manager and supervisors that I supervise, oversee, that they spend their time coaching staff, developing staff, looking for continuous improvement, that sort of thing, not necessarily, documenting like every conversation that they have with staff and that sort of thing. So it is, like Hassan said, very distracting, it is time consuming, but it's important to do so even before attempting anything else, because a lot of things haven't been addressed for many years in this utility, and when we choose not to do something, that's also a signal, right? So what we promote, and we've permitted a lot of things, so we've promoted those things too. I think there's still opportunities to strengthen our relationship with civil service representatives. So that's, in the meantime, while we try to do whatever it is that we want. But yeah, there's certainly things that we're working on, but it's gonna take a while.
Like a lot of, on one of the charts, you had a sort of like 60-day, 90-day kind of goals set. And some of those were starting in November and December, so you're in that window or just past that window. So is it too soon to notice some improvements in the system?
No, we actually, like here, and we're gonna this is gonna go live probably in the next couple of weeks, so you will be able to see something on swbno.org. But this is, for example,
Can we see this full page?
you can see it in 2 weeks,
Okay.
like the entire page.
Yeah, just
Well,
all the
because-
goals and metrics for the sub-projects or whatever you want to call them. Or is this it right here with line?
No,
nine?
so I have, this is one tab of 6 tabs in
Okay.
customer service. So this is just specifically about billing. We have another one for meter reading, another one for contact center, another
It'd
one
be
for
great to
customer
see the
service.
full thing, even if it's just column A through D. So we have like some insight into like what those SMART goals are
Mhm.
that you're trying to move.
Okay, Absolutely.
I have a bunch of detailed questions about this.
I'm
So-
sure we'll have a bunch.
And I'm just
Send
gonna
it
say,
to-
I have to go give a presentation, so I will at some point just slip out and so.
Can I say, as stakeholders, customers, we will sustain your administration and administrations to come. Like, we're your customers of Sewage and Water. We ain't going nowhere, as long as we're residents here. Like,
Oh, yeah.
how do we, with relationships with anchor institutions, GNO Inc., the council office, like, how can we make sure that these changes that you're putting in place are that sustained? What can we do? Can we pack the council chambers? Like, what can we do to make sure that when the next administration comes in, they don't go back?
To be supported, I guess, and sustained, and probably that's maybe more a question for this. I will tell you, like, from my perspective, and I'll quickly talk about like one of the challenges, but the answer to your question is yes. So if you send me a reminder, I'll send you a spreadsheet. But one of the challenges that I'm coming up with is this. You know, I'll come into work, and I've been here a little bit over a year, right? And most of my career was spent in the private industry, right? So in the private industry, it's, you know, it's sort of like cut and dry. Like, you're either a good employee or you're out of here, right? And I say this like in a positive way. But I also worked at another utility, which was a municipality, just like this one, right? But different culture, nonetheless, in the Pacific Northwest, right? So opposite side of the country. But what I'm beginning to see is that because of all the changes that we're implementing in customer service, I'm gonna say probably like 70% of people in customer service are really happy in regards to the changes. Most of them think that it was long overdue, it was necessary, it was required, it was important for them to create a culture of accountability, and that's still a work in progress. But 30, maybe 40% are not happy, obviously, right? And there are days when I come into work and like someone will hug me at the door and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Gonzalez, we love what you're doing." But then there's days where I'm like walking in the hall and 2-3 people don't even say hi to me. That's fine, right? But what I'm beginning to see is that I have some staff that are beginning to leave, which is fine. We have people that are retiring, which is also fine. People in the like the highest echelons of customer service, the highest jobs, the best paid jobs, they're just like, I'm done, you know, I'm out here. I'm just like waiting so I can hire someone off the street, right? But I also have staff that are jumping ship to go to other divisions because they think it's more relaxed outside of customer service. Right, and I just heard a conversation a couple of days ago, like here in this building, as I was walking out of the restroom, and someone was saying, well, you should get out of customer service and go to this division.
Well, that's what you want them to do, right?
Well,
Yes.
but selflessly, I mean, no. I'm not for pushing problems to my colleagues, right? Because at the end of the day,
But maybe it's a better fit.
Well, yes and no, but what Renee is doing is going to be mimicked across the board,
Yeah.
right?
You
And
can't
then
run away
to
from it.
answer your question, this has never been done before, right? So an acknowledgement that this is a new era, this is a new effort that's gonna take a while, and you gotta believe that this is gonna bring better results, and you're gonna let us be for a while. So if you are to be an influencer, anybody who's being critical and focusing on the negatives, just trust that we're gonna have confidence. We're gonna come out of this much better. So when we leave, we're leaving a system that's sustainable and standing on its own.
which
But
is
it's
what you were
not
saying.
gonna be an overnight.
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying. For people who say, "Hey, this is not for me," you know, measuring my performance is not my thing. You know, I want to leave. That's good. You know, leave, right? But if you just want to move from Renee's team to Dave or Gray or Ron's team, then the problem's going to remain, right? It's just somewhere else. Now, I think you made a comment. If they're more engaged and happier, right, in a different job, and then they're gonna perform the way they should, then awesome. I mean, that's much better than actually having someone.
What do you find the hesitation, or what do most people, why would they not jump on board with, I mean, I don't most people don't just want to not work, or something, it's, or they just don't like the work, or I mean.
Can I share some important context to this? Because I think that for some reason this is never talked about, but before these two guys got here and before I got here, but I was still working on the fringes of this place because I was working at the city, there was almost 2 years where there was no executive director and there were no real executive leaders. And you had this temporary management team that came in, but if you think about it, if at your job, your manager was just fired and not replaced, and in fact, they were replaced by someone who came in maybe 1 or 2 days a week, who had another full-time job and who actually had no idea what was happening here and was supposed to be just kind of making sure everything was still running.
It was a void.
And the people that were there before them worked here for 30 years in a time when we had no rate increases, and the culture was, we're broke, and we can't replace anything, we can't add more people, just do what you can. Yeah. And so it created a culture where people are not valued, and they don't feel that their work is important, and they aren't motivated because of that. And so I think that it's often underestimated how damaging that 2 years was in general, but also just the length of time of having an institution that was basically crumbling slowly because there was just nothing being poured into it. It was all just being extracted out of the people constantly.
Yeah, and I think Tyler is right. I think it's a combination of neglect, which is sort of what you're saying, and also intentional neglect. Right, where you have a lot of nepotism, or you used to have a lot of nepotism, right? You still see a lot of the cousin and the sister, and that sort of thing, in this utility, right? And typically, it's rare that they will be top performers, or even average performers, honestly, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of that, and I think it's important also to mention that we have a lot of jobs like meter reading, contact center, and others, which are just extremely difficult jobs. You can make the same working at a Starbucks or in a coffee shop than being out in the field all day, bending 300 times and lifting, iron cast lids, and then being in danger because of weather or crime, that sort of thing, when you could just be indoor air conditioning and then getting some tips, in addition to it. So there's a combination of factors.
Yeah. I worked for the federal government, and so it's not like this, but after Deepwater Horizon, it was everyone was leaving, they were splitting the agencies, and I still feel that there's a lot of trauma after that. So I respect 2 years of nothing. I know that had to be
to y'all's credit, it's changed. It's changing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a whole different culture. I feel it. I made calls for a relative and I got results. Yeah. And it's never been like that before. I'm 4th generation New Orleanian. It's changed. And I don't want that to go back. Yeah. Ever to what we were accustomed to, which was horror.
And I'll tell you, that's why I think you all are really important to us, right? Because during our morning presentation, Ghassan did his report to the board. We talked about, for example, billing disputes going from over 10,000 in 2018 to around 2,300 right now, right? So that's a 75% decrease.
I wanted to ask about details of this because that's the kind of stuff that I really want to hear about because I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, my theme is anecdotal today. And anecdotally, I am hearing a lot more about billing problems than I am used to. And it's not because people know that I do this, right? It's neighborhood Facebook page and Twitter and stuff like that. And every now and then somebody does know that I do this and they ask me for help.
Do you think people are just accustomed to complaining about it?
That's part of it, but it's also recently, and it might just be a coincidence, but I've had neighbors with much more complicated billing problems than a misread meter. Because I shared with y'all before, I've had my meter misread twice, and I know how to read my meter, so I never got that worked up about it because I was like, yep, that's a 5. It's an 8 on my bill. It should be a 5. It'll get fixed. But like, you know, y'all saw Adam Trank looped me into his communications with y'all, and that was more complicated.
In regards to the number of disputes keeps going down every month. And I'll provide the data, soon.
Yeah, we talked about that a couple months ago. I'd really like to see that, and maybe, is that in the board's packet every month, or
Yeah, I
that
think
I can
that,
go
like,
get?
the fact that, like, Elaine's not here and she had asked for that, like, I think she probably wants more of that as well, so maybe we do this as a 2-parter, or, maybe, like, not next month, the month after, maybe you can present more of the progress and data and numbers.
Yeah, because by then, it'll probably be already live on swbno.org.
Okay, right.
Okay,
We can show that off.
And the reason I say that is, like, I'll echo Otis's comment. I have a ton of confidence in y'all. Like, I'm very glad to know y'all, like you three specifically, because I know you're very capable and committed, and I can see what you're doing. I can see how it is going to improve things. And, the military analogy was you're turning an aircraft carrier, right? So it doesn't turn on a dime. You need time to fix this because it's such a huge, complicated bureaucracy with an entrenched culture, and so it takes time to do all this. So I'm happy to tell people when this is a topic of conversation. Again, even if they don't know that I do this, it's a topic of conversation for everybody in the city. I'm happy to tell them, hey, there are leaders in that organization now that know the problems and are working on the problems, and that they're really sharp guys, and they're working on it. I'd love to also be able to tell them, and it is getting better. And so I'm asking y'all for that data to be able to confidently say, it is starting to work. I'm sorry that you're having an issue, but it is starting to work.
And I think the third thing is kind of on your comment earlier with, like, how can we, I think these are on. How can we, like, be best at this role that we're in here? I mean, it's a volunteer role, but we still, like Kyle brought up, people come up to us, whether or not they know that we're on this board, and bring to us, like, sometimes very appalling problems that we want to help them with. And so I think that third part is us knowing how to direct those comments in order to best serve both that person and, like, you guys in this board, and, like, kind of do service to that liaison part that I know you guys wanted this group to play.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I'm thinking about sort of like what happened earlier today, right, with race, and all the job aids and the guidance that we provided on onboarding a new council member, right? And I don't know if it happened with you.
I don't think these are new developed documents, so we can definitely share. We can equip you with what the processes look like, so we don't want you to be inundated with finding the solution. We're gonna allow you to come to us anytime you have an issue, but the big message we keep sharing with everyone, when you hear about an issue, ask one question, is that, have you called 52 Water? Because that has to be respected. That process works, and it cannot be circumvented on purpose.
Have you call for what?
52 Water.
52
Water is your go-to resource, right? And if you have an emergency, that's the best way to get somebody to be dispatched to check on, investigate an issue, and then send some, appropriate forces to fix, for example. If you have any other issues, that's where you should go. But if they tell you, oh my gosh, I've tried this, I've been working on this, any of us.
And I think there might be another channel too, where you guys can qualitatively collect information from us, because we're hearing a lot of these problems that are never going to be related to a bill or somebody calling 52 Water, and that they're helpful for you to know. Like, I had a neighbor 3 doors down who, after a service call in the street, they fixed something, they left their yard covered in trash, like covered and called, and of course nobody came to pick it up. But like things like that really need to be nipped for, you know.
That's not customer service.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's never gonna be tied to anything, but it's just examples like that. I feel like we hear a lot.
And that's where we would count on you to let us know, because you are eyes and ears. And if we don't know, then we'll become disconnected from reality. So I always encourage people. I don't care when you text me, when you call me. I want to know, right? At least, and I would go out and check it out, bring the people in charge and say, how does this happen, right?
Yeah.
So that's your answer. Just
Okay.
How do we get connected to your PR department here? So if there's perhaps something we could share with the public via that LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever platforms, if we could share, like, I didn't know anything about 52 Water, and I'm on your committee.
Yeah.
You know, so how do we share this stuff? And I would love to be an advocate as well as the voice for the.
We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SWBNO or at SWB New Orleans is our handle, and we do share that messaging pretty frequently.
But specifically, if you can add some attachments to a couple of email chains and say, hey, Otis, or hey,
Here are links.
and links, and I can, sweet, I can share this with my following.
Yep. Similar to what we did this afternoon with one of the council members.
Yeah, I think I requested this at some point recently, just that I think paired with the second part of this, that if we could focus part of the meeting on like how we can best serve in this role. And I think it's kind of this double-edged sword that we're getting at here, where we want to be advocates and liaisons, and we also want to help our friends and neighbors and not inundate Goslin's cell phone at the same time. Like there needs to be a way to do that. And kind of like Kyle said, I haven't even told my neighbors that I'm on this board because I know they will be knocking on my door constantly.
I don't tell my neighbors
But I
where I work.
wouldn't be, I wouldn't be afraid if I had like that sort of like information armed.
Right. So, and just an example, I just got a text while we were here. Somebody saw a missing manhole. Somebody
That's
I played
in my
tennis with.
neighborhood.
And then,
Maybe.
I need to text you. I guess I need to text you the tore up pavement by my house.
It's not the only
Is it
one.
on Academy Drive?
They did a great job of coming out to fix it, but then they never repaired.
But
the
I think your
pavement,
point is
so.
well taken, though, that we need to do a little more work on
Right.
how do we format these meetings in a way so that it becomes a little bit more two-way. And so that's something that I think we can take back and think about a little bit more.
Y'all got to be careful. You don't let me
How
talk
do
too
we help
much
you guys
though, 'cause I
succeed?
will.
Right.
Totally. Yep. Point well taken.
I'm struggling holding some of this in right
My
now.
cake
And there's
for
a
this-
father missing.
I don't know what I missed either. So,
Yeah. Are you Sheldon?
I am.
I don't think we've ever met in person, have we?
We have.
Okay, nice to meet you. I'm Tyler. You can come up and sit at the table with us.
Sure.
Yeah, man, you're on the committee.
Hi.
Yeah, you are
I'm
towards the
Haley.
end, but here's the packet.
I got it. I got one mailed to me at the house.
Well, but this is the
Okay.
just for this
Just
meeting.
for the meeting.
But you got the strategic plan then
Yeah.
to the house. Great.
And I think regarding part of what you're saying, I think what Tyler's saying makes absolute sense, right? I think we might need to have a conversation on being more specific and coming up with a more clear approach regarding like our relationship, right?
I was also gonna put it on my resume.
That-
That I'm on this.
But for example,
That's putting it out there.
I know, it's a government resume, it's
we
fine.
have a document, which I think is a really good document. One of the documents that we shared with council this morning. And it's basically if this is your problem, this is what you do.
That would be
If this is your
great.
problem, this
That'd
is
be
who you
great.
call. Like an if-then chart for just about like anything, right? Because people are gonna approach you with 10 different things, right? And if at least you're able to direct them, like Hassan said, to the appropriate person or department, then just that, probably that 50% of it is solved, getting to the right person, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but I guess last pause. I do want to start to wrap things up. And if anyone has any more questions, I don't want to cut you off. But
I just wanted to show my kids on Look at This Fucking Street, New Orleans, but.
Do you guys follow that account?
I'm not on social media, but people show it to me all the time, so I do see it.
You do?
But just
Okay.
like one plug on 52 Water though, like people don't realize this. I had my neighbor the other day. Her water got turned off on like a Sunday somehow. It couldn't have been us, but she's like came over and was like, "Is your water working?" And I was like, "Yeah, but call 52 Water." And she's like, "Well, they're not open today." I'm like, "Yeah, they are." like the 52 water line is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They're not going to deal with, like, if you want to do a building dispute, that's what, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. But if you have a leak or your water's not working or you smell sewage or something like that,
It's subjective.
available
They just
at
input
all
data.
times.
Yeah.
So, like, make sure that,
It's actually
like
7 to
Kassan
7.
said, when people ask you these
7 to
things,
7,
like,
no?
that should be number one is, did you call 52 water?
I just want to
And-
say this is unprecedented in the city. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I hope it
For
rubs
an
off.
executive director to sit with normal stakeholders, right? We're just regular people, right? Some of us had professional careers. some
You're
of
my
us are
advisors.
Contractors. I'm just, this is change for me. Like, this is optimism. Like, this is our city heading in the right direction. Right here, this is one of our biggest, like, issues in our city, right? This sewage and water board. But this is change. So
Thank you.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that you would take the time out and answer
Happy
emails.
that I had volunteers willing to do this. I mean, that
Yeah.
wouldn't have happened if you weren't interested and passionate about making the city better, so.
And which is
Yeah.
why the holy grail at the end of the day is like AMI,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
For
Because-
one of our.
yeah, for one of
issues,
them, because when you get AMI, you're talking about like 99.8, billing accuracy,
Yeah.
right, percent. But there's still, I don't know, 2-3 years, whatever it is, that we still need to not just sit and wait.
Yeah.
Which is the current efforts that we're doing.
Okay. That's
Awesome.
great. Since we're talking about one-off things,
Yes,
I
you-
have one for you.
Okay.
My boss and one of my very good friends lives on Amelia, and it's like catty corner from Walter Cohen, or what used to be Walter Cohen High School right there, and had a leak on the street sidewalk before Mardi Gras. He's a chemical engineer and estimates it's been like 10 million gallons that's leaked since then. They came out a couple weeks ago, Sewerage and Water Board did, and dug a hole. Said they'd be back tomorrow